The Prepper Podcast, Episode 3.
They've got to know whether or not their president's a crook.
The American people would never vote for socialism. He said, under the name of liberalism, the American people will adopt every fragment of the socialist program.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ken Jensen, and this is the Prepper Podcast, and this is the podcast about everything survival. The Prepper Podcast is an up-to-date survival podcast based on military, wilderness, and modern-day survival, and may be found at theprepperpodcast.com. That is theprepperpodcast.com. Don't forget to put the in there, or you will go to someone else's site that isn't quite as cool as mine. All right, this is episode 3, once again. And today I'm discussing the basics, the very basics of survivalism and what basic things should be considered when you start as a survivalist. Now, in any emergency survival, emergency survival can be overwhelming. It can be a daunting task. And when you figure out that emergency situations are completely possible and you're not ready for them, you don't really know where to start. When you become survival-minded, you begin to hoard large quantities of beans and rice and canned goods. And it's all right, but it's not, I wouldn't consider it a great plan for survival. It would just be enough to make you feel comfortable with your situation, but you're not really ready, but you're comfortable, so you're not really going to get ready. Everyone wants to suddenly start preparing for Armageddon when the volcano erupts or a huge meteor hits us or we have nuclear holocaust. That's what they want to prep for, is the so-called sexy things. Don't believe the doomsday prepper hype. Those things, I would never discount them, but there are much more things, much more likely end of your world scenarios that are possible. So we need to step back. This is exactly what they tell you in wilderness survival. They tell you to stop, step back, assess the situation, and commence with your action. So we need to stop and think critically about what is the most likely scenarios. If you live in Tornado Alley, what's more likely, a tornado or a nuclear winter? Obviously a tornado. If you live on the coast, a hurricane's more likely than a sudden full collapse of the world's economy. All of the emergency survival scenarios are possible and warrant some thought. But what we should do is take care of the more likely scenarios first. If you live in a city or a town larger than 30,000 people, home invasion is a likely scenario, so we have to get ready for that as well. With all of this in mind, let's start thinking in terms of what is needed first. Let's think about what our needs are. So we need to think of food, shelter, water, warmth or cooling, clothing, medical, and self-defense. Now, initially, I'm going to say self-defense kind of moves down the list a little bit, but not for very long. We want to start with our basic preps first. So we'll kind of, shy away from the self-defense for a little while. And for this post, I don't think I'm really going to get into that. So now we've thought about our needs. Everybody's got to eat, so food is very important. You can live almost a week without food, but you're gonna be really, really hurting through that time. Your mind's gonna play tricks on you. Everything else. Everybody needs shelter. yes, someone can go without shelter for a while, but eventually the elements are going to get you, and you're going to wish that you had shelter. Everybody needs water because everybody needs to drink. You can only go for a few days without water before you're dehydrated and you die. Warmth or cooling. I mean, let's be honest here. Caveman, early man, was much better at the elements than we are. So we kind of want to account for that. So if we can prepare with some items to keep us warm or to keep us cool when it's cold or hot, then it's probably going to be helpful. Clothing, that kind of goes along with warmth and cooling, but the warmth and cooling is more of like heaters and small air conditioners or fans, whereas the clothing, you're going to want thick, nice clothing to keep you warm in the wintertime, or you're going to want thin clothing to keep you cool during the summertime, but you also want it so that when you're in the middle of doing work or something like that, you're a lot less likely to get cut because clothing has that one extra layer of protection. Medical, everybody's going to want to get all the basic medical supplies that they can get, so that if for some reason the hospitals aren't available, that kind of thing, they're going to want to have their own medical supplies available. And then self-defense. Everybody needs to learn to defend themselves. They need to learn to defend their home, things like that. So you want self-defense classes, you want practice, all those things. So in our preps, first we want to start thinking about everything in terms of length of time. So many local scenarios are going to require 3 or so days or 72 hours, and we need to be prepared for that. We should be prepared to stay in our home or to leave it for that length of time. Something could happen on a larger scale, or you may live in the country, and this could be extended to a week or two. You could lose your job, or there could be quarantine due to flu or other sickness pandemic. They could tell everyone to stay home for a month. As the scenario gets larger and more unlikely, it'll be required that you're going to need to be ready for longer periods of time. So it's going to be required that you get more organized. Now that we've thought about some basic needs and some basic length of times that we have to consider, we are going to be required to fulfill our needs for those length of times now. I'm not going to give you an all-inclusive list, but I do want you to stop and think about what I'm talking about so that you can think about some of the items that you're going to need and some time periods that you need to think about. Don't come complaining to me because I didn't think of everything for you. I'm here to help everybody, but guys, you need to freaking take care of yourselves. Alright, be a man, be a woman, be an adult. Take care of yourselves. I'm not a one-stop shop for all of your prepping needs, although I try to come close. I welcome suggestions or additions to any of my posts, so just use some common sense, be reasonable, and comment on the post. You'll be able to find my show notes for this show at theprepperpodcast.com/003. That is theprepperpodcast.com/003. Okay, so now that we have really thought about that stuff, I want you to you really need to decide what you're missing. Everybody has a certain amount of stuff in their home, and everybody's ready for a certain amount of something with the stuff that is in their home. So what you're going to do is you're going to analyze what you're ready for and what you're not. Now, how are you going to do this? You can do this by running a drill. All right, just a basic drill. You want to go without electricity one day, or water, or heat, for a reduced period of time. So let's say 24 to 48 hours. So like a full day or two on a weekend or something like that. Just go over there and pop your breakers and turn it all off and tell your family, hey, now we've lost this utility. We need to survive without that for a day or two. Now, we only want to get rid of some of the stuff, because you don't want to, your family's not ready for this stuff. So let's be very basic. Let's only remove one or two of the things that we're going to. Let's only get rid of one or two things at a time, because there's only so much stuff that you're going to be able to do with your first time, your first drill. Okay, so now that all this is done, and you've run your drill, and you've noticed that there are gaps in what you have, there are things that you need to do. So you analyze that, and based on your prepper analysis, you prepare for 72 hours of full blackout. All right, like I said, your drill is going to be stressful to everybody, so give yourself some comforts. You don't want your wife to be ticked off at you because you decided to be crazy Joe Prepper. And my basic motto is happy wife, happy life. So you follow that, you'll be doing pretty good. So you're going to use this and decide 72 hours of full blackout. This is the electricity, water, etc., the whole enchilada. And we aren't talking just rice and beans for everyone at every meal. Times are going to be stressful enough, so there's no point in stressing anybody out. We need 3 meals a day per person, not one. Okay, you don't want to starve yourself during something like this. Let me pause this real quick. Sorry, everybody. I had to take off for a minute. I do this podcast at home. Like I said, I'm not promising that I won't be doing these in my car and stuff like that. But this time I was doing it at home, and I had to go and deal with my little baby daughter. My wife needed my assistance, so I did what any good father would do, and I stopped the podcast. And I went and took care of the issue, and now I'm back to continue with where I was at. Now let me think about where I was at so that I can continue with what I was talking about. I think I told you that you're going to analyze and prepare for 72 hours of full blackout, talking about everything that you're going to lose. You don't want just rice and beans. You want 3 meals a day per person, not one, because you don't want to starve yourselves. Now that you're prepared for 72 hours at home, you're going to prepare for 72 hours on the move. You're going to prepare for 72 hours at a bug out location, not at home, something like that. Now, this is where a lot of people end up with the 72-hour bug out bag. All right, a bug out bag is going to actually be my next episode, so you guys will really want to stay tuned for that one. And that one, I think, will be a pretty good one. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to run another drill, and you're going to see how you're doing with your preps. And you prepare a little bit more and get everything nice and tight and ready to go. And then you're going to prepare for, once you're done with your 72 hours, you want to do it for a week at home. And then you're going to do it for a week away from home. Then you run your drills. Then you find your holes, and then you want to do it, get your week all set up, and then you want to go for 2 weeks at home, and then 2 weeks away, and then 1 month at home, and 1 month away. So, by the time you get done with all this, you're going to be ready for the larger stuff. All right, this is just smaller stuff. This is dealing with job loss. This is dealing with, tornadoes coming through and earthquakes and natural events. But then, when there's some kind of and there's some kind of viral pandemic or whatever, and people are afraid to go out of their homes, well, guess what? You're going to be ready. All right, so you really want to be prepared. You want to go 72 hours, then a week, then 2 weeks, and then a month, both at home and away. All right, so we need to consider all the needs on the list for each time scenario. For each time period that we're going to be at home or away, we need to consider all the needs on the list that I gave you. By starting smaller, we can complete the goals in a timely manner. All right, and at least we'll be prepared to some degree quickly. We ensure that we're ready for the most likely scenarios instead of being completely overwhelmed and throwing darts with our eyes closed. By being prepared for, the previous step, we're at least halfway toward our next goal. So you really aren't preparing for a month now. You're getting your preps ready for an extra 2 weeks because you're already ready for the first 2 weeks. All right, so you're halfway there every single time. By the time we complete our 1 month, we're much more relaxed. We already know the curveballs that are going to be thrown at us. We're going to be ready. We're going to be ready for any things that might happen in life, and that includes the emergency situations of like a job loss or something like that. And we know that we can feed our family for a month at least. We're much more prepared. At this point, we are much more prepared than about 95% of everyone out there. That's ridiculous. We are the top 5% just because we are prepared for 1 month at home and 1 month away. So at this time, we can up our preparation stores to whatever we want. Eventually, we can move ourselves into self-sufficiency. But you don't get there in one night. You got to take small steps, and you got to get prepared. In the meantime, you need to be self-reliant, working toward the goal of self-sufficiency. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I've had to pause this several times, lost where I was going, things like that. But that kind of stuff happens whenever you have a family. You have to take off and go take care of your family. I had to do that probably about 3 times during this podcast. So if it seems a little bit off, then I apologize, and I know that next week will probably be a lot better. So you guys continue to prepare for self-sufficiency and self-reliance. And remember, the Prepper Podcast is an up-to-date survival podcast based on military, wilderness, and modern-day survival. And you may find my show notes at theprepperpodcast.com/003. That is theprepperpodcast.com/003. Thank you guys, and have a great week.